Good afternoon, everyone. We want to welcome you all here to the first assessment team office hours for the Maine Department of Education in the 25-26 school year. Our assessment team has a lot of content to share with you today. So we do ask that you hold your questions until the end of the presentation. As always, the questions from participants will be answered at the end of the content, as well as added to a question and answer document following today's session. So these will be shared so you can reference them in writing as well, following the conclusion of our office hour today. For those of you who may be new to the call or new to the role of District Assessment Coordinator or another role within your SAU, we'll do some very brief hellos from the coordinators. My name is Jody Bossio-Smith. I'm the Director of Assessment here at the Maine Department of Education, and I'm going to pass it briefly over to my colleague, Krista.
Hi, everyone. I'm Krista Averill. I'm the Assessment Coordinator for the Maine Through Year Assessment, as well as the Maine Science Assessment, and I'll pass it over to Michelle.
Hi, I am Michelle Gangelfinger. I am the English Language Proficiency and Alternate Assessment Coordinator. And Jody, I believe back to you.
Yeah, thank you. So Dr. Regina Lewis, many of you know, is our state coordinator for the National Assessment of Educational Progress, also known as the NAEP, as well as International Assessments. She is out of office this week and sends regrets. And we are also joined off camera by our administrative support colleague on the assessment team, Daniela Crone. And just a reminder for those who may have joined after we already began the session, we will be addressing your questions at the end of today's session. We will handle them at the end of the call, as well as add them to a Q&A reference document, which we can share following the conclusion of today's office hour. And with that, Krista, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
So let's talk about security training for the Maine Educational Assessments. Today, I'm taking this slide because the first assessment that is coming up is the Maine Through Year Assessment right around the corner. So as part of your security training for the Maine Educational Assessments, which does apply to the whole umbrella of MEAs, district and school assessment coordinators need to watch the assessment coordinator security training. This is the same video as you watched last year, but we do request that you rewatch it each academic year. The Assessment Security Handbook should also be read. That's available on our security webpage. And we ask that you sign the Maine Educational Assessment Security and Data Privacy Agreement, which you can find in Appendix A of the handbook. Some assessments have specific trainings just for them. So we ask that you complete those applicable assessment-specific trainings as they arise. We'll talk about those for the Maine Through Year Assessment in just a moment. And ensure that all of your proctors have received the necessary training. Proctors or assessment administrators should watch the 2 brief assessment security webisodes available on our webpage and also sign the Security and Data Privacy Agreement in Appendix A of the handbook. Proctors also have assessment-specific trainings, so as those come up throughout the year, you will want to ensure that they have completed them. So we are going to start with the Maine Through Year Assessment. We have plenty of updates for you about the Maine Through Year Assessment. So here we go. The first thing is there's been many changes this summer at NWEA. We have new RIT score norms and the enhanced item selection algorithm. I'll talk to you about those in a moment. And then we also have Haley Westfall with us today from NWEA to talk about some map growth rostering changes, the new login page, the user role permission changes, and the updated system and technology requirements. So the first thing I want to share with you today is some information from a recent NWEA webinar called Same Scale, New Reference. Dr. Karen Lewis led this webinar just a few weeks ago, and it is excellent. I highly recommend watching it if you have the chance. The link is included in the slides. I will just note that you may be prompted to provide your name and email to NWEA at this time in order to access the resource, but the slides are available without that marketing wall. So because these are NWEA slides, anytime you see we, that's NWEA. I'm just presenting to you some of the information from that session. So the first thing we're going to look at is what is the purpose of norms and why does NWEA update them? So the fundamental purpose of norms is to provide context. Without context, the score is just a number. And so national norms add meaning to scores so that they can become actionable data. They compare students to their same grade peers in the same content area with the same amount of instruction. But norms are only as good as the data that they're based on. And so they're most meaningful when they represent the current context. So Dr. Karen Lewis had a great analogy about how context changes over time using a Google Street View. So here we're looking at the same street view, but we're looking now versus 5 years ago. And we can see that what is in that street view from 5 years ago is not fully an accurate representation of the current picture. There's a new mural, the Kroger has become a public parking lot, and similarly, outdated norms do not compare students' performance today to their current peers. So the key point that NWEA is communicating is that the RIT scale hasn't changed, but the reference group has. And so the 2025 norms are going to provide a more accurate picture of student achievement today. So one factor influencing the new norms is the new enhanced item selection algorithm. And if you've been with me before, we've talked about it. We're going to talk about it in a different viewpoint today. So the enhanced item selection algorithm is a change in how the assessment selects items or questions for students. And it's going to prioritize the selection of on-grade items. We'll look in a moment at how it does that. Through this prioritization of on-grade items, there will be a better alignment to the content students are currently learning in the classroom. So here we have a distribution of item difficulty, with the RIT score of an item on the x-axis separated by grade on the y-axis. Every question on the Maine Through Year Assessment is written to align with a certain grade level standard. And we can see here that average item difficulty increases with each grade, but there's a significant amount of overlap between those grades. So we're going to look first, as an example, at a 4th grade student. And this example 4th grade student is performing right around average for their grade at a RIT score of 200. So in the box is the range of items that would be an appropriate match if we were only considering item difficulty and not grade level. So in the traditional or legacy item selection algorithm, those items could come from any of those grade levels, not just 4th grade. The difference moving forward is that the new enhanced item selection algorithm is going to prioritize on-grade content. So we can think here under the legacy item selection algorithm as all of the suitable items as a bag of marbles. So this bag includes items from multiple grade levels, not only 4th, but we have 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 5th, 6th, and 7th. The legacy algorithm would randomly draw a marble from this bag, even though there was a 4th grade item of suitable difficulty in the bag. Under the enhanced item selection algorithm, also known as ESA, we're no longer treating all items of the same difficulty level as interchangeable. So instead of one big bag of 200 level RIT score items, the algorithm now splits those items into separate bags based on the grade level the items were written for. That doesn't mean that we've lost adaptivity. So the new algorithm looks first at the bag of on-grade level items, and if a suitable match is found, it pulls from that set. Students are more likely to see content from their grade level. But if we have a student that is performing outside of what would be considered average, for example, a high-performing 4th grader who is performing at a RIT difficulty of 250, there may not be enough 4th grade items at that RIT difficulty level. So the system will expand to search to the next grade level or even 2 grades above if needed to select an item that matches the RIT score difficulty and fulfills the assessment blueprint. And this is the same for students who are performing below grade level. So the new enhanced item selection algorithm prioritizes grade level content and only reaches outside of the grade when needed. And NWEA has shared that this increases instructional relevance while still maintaining adaptivity. So let's look now at what's new in the 2025 norms. The 2025 norms are called that because they're published in 2025, but the data is actually from the 22-23 and 23-24 school years. It's from 116 million scores from 13.8 million students across 30,000 schools and 7,000 districts across all 50 states. So it's a huge body of data that is supporting these norms. So as we look at these norms, we just want to remember that interpreting changes requires caution. There's a lot of different factors contributing to the shifts that we're seeing in the 2025 norms. We have the impact of school disruptions due to the pandemic. We have this new enhanced item selection algorithm that's improving the quality of the assessment. And then we have changes in the population of students that are taking the assessment. So the bottom line is when we're comparing these norms, we're not just looking at learning loss, but we're looking at a net effect. We have new data, a new context, and an improved assessment. So overall, distribution shifted down and became more variable. What we're going to see on the next few slides is that there were larger shifts at the lower achievement levels and smaller shifts at the higher achievement levels. So this is an example of a heat map, is what we're going to see for reading. We're going to look at some shifts in spring achievement, comparing how students performed at the 50th percentile or the median in spring based on the 2020 norms and then the 2025 norms. So just a quick note before we dive into these numbers, trying to get some context on what's a big change or a small change. So the standard error of measurement for RIT scores is about 3 points. So typically we would expect that a student's score may fluctuate by up to 3 points if they were to assess again. So any difference of 1 to 3 points is considered pretty small. And then after that, the significance of the difference increases. So here we can see that for the 50th percentile student in reading, we're seeing relatively small decreases across most grade levels and some larger decreases in other grade levels. So that's for your average student at the median. If we look across, however, for grade 3, across the percentiles, what we're seeing here is our students performing at the 5th percentile have substantial decreases in RIT scores compared to the 2020 norms. Whereas students performing at the highest percentile, so here we have the 95th percentile, actually don't have any change since the 2020 norms. So if we look at the map altogether for K through 8, we have some takeaways. Across grades, lower achieving students are showing steeper declines than higher achievers. And in older grades, the trend is less stark with more consistent declines across the spectrum. And we can see this particularly in grade 8, where we're seeing a pretty consistent RIT score decrease from 2020 to 2025 of 4 RIT score points across nearly all of the percentiles shown. Math is a very different picture, however, and it's different for different grade levels. So the key takeaways from math here is across grades, scores generally lower at and below the median. So we are seeing those decreases there. But in the younger grades, scores increased at the upper ends of the distribution. And in older grades, those declines are evident across the spectrum, but become steeper at the lower percentiles. So let's look a little bit at growth and how the enhanced item selection algorithm may be impacting what we're seeing here in math. So let's look at changes in fall to spring growth. In reading, we're seeing lower growth, especially at the median and below. And this matches what we're seeing in lower achievement. But in math, we're seeing higher growth, especially above the median. And this is related in part to this new enhanced item selection algorithm that we just looked at. So when we're thinking about reading content standards from grade level to grade level, there's a gradual shift, right, in complexity and deepening of knowledge. But math is a little bit different. In math, we have some new content that has not been seen before that's introduced at certain grade levels. And so with the enhanced item selection algorithm for math, we've seen some decreases in fall RIT scores because there's new content that students have most likely not seen before. It's on-grade content. And then we've seen greater growth throughout the year because of the increased measurement sensitivity of the new enhanced item selection algorithm, where it's more accurately measuring students' growth of on-grade level content. And so that's why we're seeing some differences here in reading versus math. So what about high school? So high school is a little bit different when we're considering national norms. And part of that is the math growth assessment is not as widely utilized in high school. It's usually specific student populations that are administered the assessment, especially as you get up into grades 11 and 12. So that's why here NWEA has provided a bigger picture instead of dividing it into percentile groups. But we still have some key takeaways. So achievement declines in all subjects, but the largest in reading. And that growth is slightly higher in math, but slightly down in other subjects, which corresponds to what we had seen in grades K through 8. So what are the implications? And this is really dependent on how your school or SAU is utilizing RIT scores. So not that all schools or SAUs are using RIT scores to make program decisions, but NWEA recommended that I include this for you as well to provide some context. So let's say you have identified certain RIT scores as thresholds for either providing additional support to students, just say, for example, below the 30th percentile based on the 2020 norms, or perhaps eligibility for gifted and talented programs for students who were performing above the 95th percentile based on the 2020 norms. If you were to maintain those same RIT score cutoffs for eligibility, then you're going to see some shifts because the norms are shifting. So for example, you would see students who are no longer eligible for those additional supports or students who are newly qualifying for gifted and talented programs. So as you're making these decisions, what we're not saying is change all your thresholds, get rid of all of those RIT score cutoffs, but what we are saying is review whether or not they're still making sense. So ask yourself, why did you originally choose these cut points? And do they still align with your goals and resources? Are they intentional choices or are they just how things have been? These normative cuts can still be useful and appropriate, but they really should be intentional choices that reflect your current priorities. We have more 2025 norms resources for you. There's a toolkit, a quick reference guide through which you can also get to the technical manual. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Haley Westfall from NWEA to share some back to school updates.
Yeah, thank you so much, Krista, for sharing that. I did just want to add, in addition to those resources that were shared on the slide, you can always contact your NWEA account manager. They're a very helpful resource when it comes to making some of those decisions for your programs and those percentile cutoffs. I am here today to share some back to school updates that we have coming out of MAP Growth. There are some additional updates for the specific MAP Growth product. I am sharing the ones that are going to be relevant to you all as we administer the Maine Through Year Assessment. So the first one that I would like to start with is some rostering updates. For the 25-26 school year, we started the rollout of what is called the HMH rostering service. We understand that with this rollout, we did see some delays and some frustrations from our partners. And so we just want to, first of all, start by saying thank you for your patience as we work through some of those changes and we have some of those growing pains. And also we wanted to mention that we heard your frustration and we understand the need to roster students and staff quickly so you can begin your testing in the MAP Growth platform. With that in mind, I wanted to let you know that you have multiple options for rostering into MAP Growth. You can utilize our standard rostering process, which is a file-based upload, or you could also manually create students and staff with that method. We also have reverted back our NWEA Clever and ClassLink applications. So if you were initially planned to migrate to the HMH rostering service with those applications, you now have the option to utilize what you used to use with the NWEA apps. If you would like to move forward with the HMH rostering service, that option is still available to you. You can still move forward with that migration. And we just wanted to note that regardless of how you choose to roster in the NWEA platform, your testing for the Maine Through Year Assessment will not be impacted. So keep that in mind as you choose your method. We want you to have a successful start to your school year. So choose what is best for you. You have all of these options available to you. I'd also just like to take some time to explain the HMH rostering service if you haven't had a chance to dive into the offering that we now have available. It is a unified rostering platform that is used to integrate the MAP growth assessment with HMH digital products. What we're doing is allowing districts and SAUs to roster students and staff once instead of having to dual roster in both HMH platforms and NWEA. Just like the legacy ClassLink and Clever applications you had available, the HMH rostering service also allows Clever and ClassLink in addition to other options like OneRoster, API, or a simple file format. If you choose to migrate to the HMH rostering service this year, you have the benefit again of just rostering once for connected products. You don't have to duplicate your efforts. It's also an improved user interface. It's more of, I've heard the analogy of like a TurboTax where it walks you through step by step. And so I like to bring that up as well as error handling. It's just going to allow for that integration of HMH curriculum tools like Read 180, Math 180, Waggle, and Personalized Path if you utilize those products. And then also it allows for rule-based permission settings. So it's flexible role switching and user management at your availability. On the screen, you'll see some rostering resources that we have across the rostering options. So there are HMH rostering service resources as well as NWEA legacy resources. If you're interested in migrating to the HMH rostering service and you haven't yet made that decision, you can send an email to digitalsolutions@nwea.org. And if you have any rostering related questions, you can contact our Maine designated support line. So you'll see the number there on the screen with the times and dates they are available. In addition to our rostering updates, we have some other materials that I'll walk you through. We have a new login page that you will see. The main difference that you will see with the login page is really just new branding. You'll see we have an updated image. You'll still enter your email address and you'll move to the password prompt. On the second page with the password prompt, you'll see the system status page as well as a link to get system support. So same process as before. Once you log in, you will be directed to our NWEA start page. And once you're there, you'll go to the Maine Through Year Assessment. We also have some user role permission changes that are happening in MAP growth. I want to mention that this is happening in MAP growth. This is not happening in the Maine Through Year Assessment. All of those role permissions are remaining the same. These are just going to be changing what you have access to in the MAP growth system. We are making some of these updates to simplify and unify permissions across our platforms and HMH systems. This is kind of in partnership with HMH rostering service. So what this does is just ensure you have the consistent role appropriate access you need, hopefully reducing any confusion when you work across those systems and just really streamlining that experience. The first update I'll mention is related to our district proctor. So the district proctor is now going to be reserved for reporting, or not reporting purposes, excuse me, reserved for managing test sessions within your district. We used to be able to add and edit students with this role. That is now reserved for data administrators. So I have on the screen an image showing you the permissions for a district proctor. You'll see you have no limits within your district to manage test sessions. You can set up and conduct student testing as before. This is just going to allow you to stick to managing test sessions, and this change is only happening in the MAP growth user roles. It is not affecting what you will do as a proctor in the Maine Through Year Assessment platform. We also have updates to district assessment coordinators. So if you used to have this permission, you will notice now that this is reserved for reporting purposes. DACs will be able to view MAP growth and operational reports for all schools and all of those reports that roll up at the district level. This is a slight change to some of the user permissions that you may have had in the past. So on the next screen, I'll walk you through if you had actions with this user role specifically, what you will need now in the system. Again, this is just in the map growth system. If you do update your user profile, those will sync to Acacia, but this is just going to change what the DAC does in map growth. On the screen, if you see an action that you used to do with the DAC role, you will now need the system administrator or the data administrator. So I want to note, if you need to add the system administrator role to your profile, you can layer your user roles. You will need a system administrator at your SAU to update that permission for you, so keep that in mind. But if you do update that profile in map growth, that change will sync to the Maine Through Year Assessment platform. I'll just give an example. If you were used to managing your test windows in map growth, you will now need the system administrator role. If you were used to editing staff and student accounts, you will now need the system administrator or the data administrator role. The last update that I'll share is just related to system and technology requirements. Each year, we want to ensure we are updating our system and technology to meet any minimum requirements. So on the screen, you'll see I have linked a workstation diagnostic tool. This web-based tool is going to check to see if your device is configured to our current requirements, and it's really helpful to check to see if you are prepared for testing and proctoring with your devices. One thing I wanted to note is we do recommend turning off automatic updates during an assessment window. And then at the end of this slide, you'll see I have a link to our map growth system requirements, as well as the Acacia Maine Through Year Assessment platform system requirements. And I think that's all I have, Krista, so I'll stop sharing and send it back over to you.
So we are going to talk very briefly about the transition to Connect. You may have received the priority notice that went out yesterday. We had anticipated transitioning to Connect, the student information gathering system, at the beginning of this academic year, but in order to ensure a smooth transition, that transition is being postponed. So we will continue to utilize Synergy for enrollment information for the fall 25 administration of the Maine Through Year Assessment, and the Maine DOE data team will keep all of us updated for when that transition to Connect will occur later this academic year. So let's talk about new district assessment coordinator or DAC accounts. So for the Maine Through Year Assessment, there are two primary platforms that you are using. There's the MAP platform, which you can get to from start.mapnwea.org. And that is NWEA's platform for the map growth assessment, but it is also the access point for Acacia. Acacia is NWEA's platform for the Maine Through Year Assessment, which you have to access by logging into MAP. So to access both MAP and Acacia, a MAP system administrator for your SAU needs to create an assessment coordinator account for you in MAP as the new DAC. And then, as Haley was just talking about, DACs can also be assigned other roles. So if you're looking to add, edit, or remove other staff users, then that system administrator will also want to give you the system administrator role. There's information in our user and student management guide about updating user roles and how that connects to Acacia. We're going to look briefly at the individual student report here. We've looked at it a little bit before, but I want to focus on it because your Maine Science Assessment reports are coming out very soon. So individual student reports, regardless of the assessment, are developed specifically for parents and guardians of students. And so for the Maine Through Year Assessment, ISR, or individual student report, it's one page, and the top of it answers the question, what is the Maine Through Year Assessment and why is my child taking this test? There's also a portion to answer the question of whether the child is meeting state expectations, and then where the parent can find more information about the 4 achievement levels. So there's a link there with a pretty simple URL and also a QR code. To access the ISR in Acacia, you could either go to the menu and click Student Scores under Reports, or click the View Reports icon on your homepage, and then click the ISR Bulk Print tab. From there, you can do bulk students, which generates a zip folder of ISRs for students, or you could do one student. So although other reports, such as the Map Growth Family Report, can be provided to families, this ISR must be distributed to families. So the ISR has the Maine scale score, which is a measure of on-grade performance, which is required to be distributed. That distribution can be paper-based or virtual. We recommend that SAUs use their local communication tools and platforms with which families are already most familiar for the delivery of those ISRs. So now looking at the 25-26 school year, which is just around the corner, that fall administration is starting on September 15th and will run for 6 weeks. The optional winter and spring administrations are also 6 weeks, although the spring does appear to have an extra week because it will be closed the week of spring break. So for the fall administration, I just want to talk about some important dates. On August 29th, our assessment roster daily change files will begin based on student enrollment data entered by the SAU into Synergy. On September 2nd is the first day that you can get into Acacia and start your pre-administration activities. So things like assigning supports and accommodations and printing test tickets. And I've provided some links in the slides for you to help you access those resources more quickly. As I said, that fall administration window is from September 15th, 6 weeks, through October 24th. October 17th, it's the Friday before the last week of the assessment administration window, is your last opportunity to request assessment resets for fall 25. October 23rd in the evening is the last assessment roster daily change file. So any changes to student enrollments in Synergy after that time will not appear in Acacia. And if they are necessary, you'll need to reach out to me directly to have those updated. And then October 31st is the last day of the SAU data cleanup window, and the checklist is included there. So as I had mentioned way back at the beginning of our time today, there are some assessment-specific trainings, and these are the ones for the Maine Through Year Assessment. So once each academic year, the following trainings must be completed. For district and school assessment coordinators, we have the assessment coordinator training module, and it has been updated for 25-26. That new link will become available from NWEA very soon on the connection page. We apologize that it's not yet available for you. We had some changes that needed to be made with the reverting from Connect back to Synergy. But as soon as possible, we'll make sure that you have access to the module. In addition, your proctors will need to watch the Maine Through Year Assessment proctor training video. That updated version with new screenshots is actually complete. It just hasn't yet been posted to our Maine DOE YouTube page. We will make sure it is posted, but in the meantime, we are going to still keep last year's version available to you with the old screenshots, and we won't remove that version from YouTube until after the conclusion of the fall administration window. So you will have access to both. The new one will be linked on our webpage, but just in case you use this link, you will still be all set. If you need assistance for the Maine Through Year Assessment, NWEA Maine Partner Support is here to help you with all of your technical issues related to the Acacia platform and the Math Growth platform. I'm here for any questions related to content, accessibility, scoring, and reporting, as well as policy. And now we're going to transition to the Maine Science Assessment. So new district assessment coordinators or DACs, what accounts you'll need. Kite is the reporting platform for the Maine Science Assessment, and a new DAC file was provided to the vendor on July 24th. Any DACs entered into NEO after July 24th should reach out to me directly at the email address shown to have your Kite account created. If you were in NEO prior to July 24th and you're having difficulty accessing your account, you are still welcome to reach out to me to make sure that we get you that access. ADAM is the assessment delivery and management system. It is still currently open to DACs for spring 2025 with just its general overall progress and summary reports if you need to look at them for participation calculations. But for the spring assessment, it will close in mid-September and then it will reopen in late February. So any new DACs entered into NEO prior to mid-February will automatically have an account created for them in ADAM. So there's plenty of time there. However, when access to ADAM does open on February 25th of 2026, any new DACs who need additional assistance should reach out to me. And I'll remind you of that, of course, as that gets closer. Score reporting. So scores are going to become available on August 26th in the KITE reporting platform. There are two groups of report types. There's the general assessment reports, which are going to be our PDFs. We'll talk about those in a moment. And then there's a data extract, which gives us the student score data file. I do want to highlight on this slide here that we have a link to the scoring and reporting resources on the Maine Science support page, which includes the reporting platform guide and the score interpretation guide. So the school and SAU summary reports are for schools and districts. And essentially, they're a really big picture view of student performance that can answer how are students in my school and SAU or district performing compared to students across the state of Maine. This screenshot is of an SAU summary report, but the school report is structured in very much the same way. So across the top, we have some score comparisons between the school for a school report, the SAU, and the state. We have some aggregated data pie charts for easy visualizations, as well as an SAU aggregate. We also have the total N tested, so the number of students tested, and the percent borderline students. So a borderline student is a student who scored in the below state expectations range, but based on their standard error of measurement, may have fallen into the at state expectations range if they were to be tested again. And then on this screen, you can also see the achievement level breakdown. The SAU report and the school report also have breakdowns by grade levels, so a different table for each grade level within that organization. So we can see here individual student scores, the SAU scores and the state scores for comparison purposes. Overall scaled score is the average scaled score for all of the students included within that organization. And the overall achievement level corresponds to that overall scaled score. And then here you'll also see the raw score average. So on the school and SAU summary reports, subscores are indicated as subscore 1, 2, or 3. But if you go into the score interpretation guide, you'll get the breakdown of the topic names for each of those subscores, which are different for grade 5 than they are for grades 8 in high school, as well as the performance expectations that are included within that subscore. The individual student report is for families. So similar to the Maine Through Year Assessment, the first question that's answered is, what is this assessment and why is my child participating in it? The Maine Science Assessment ISR also includes what questions the family can ask their child and their child's teacher about their science learning. It answers the question, is my child meeting state expectations? This is on page 2 of the ISR. How does my child's science achievement compare to other students? And what are areas of relative strength and need for my child? To access the ISRs, which will become available on August 26th, you would go into the KITE Educator portal under Reports and click General Assessment, and you will see the option to either access individual student ISRs under the 2025 report year, or bundled ISRs, which is one PDF with a group of ISRs sorted by school grade and student last name as another option. So all of the previous information about distribution of ISRs still applies here. But in addition, it's recommended to distribute ISRs to families within 2 weeks of the last ISR becoming available. So we recommend that you don't wait to do this until the end of the first quarter of the end of the first trimester. You will get your Maine Science Assessment ISRs fairly soon, in about 6 days. And within 2 weeks of that, we recommend getting that information out to families. The last file is under data extracts. It's the student score data file. And this file can help answer questions like, how does the achievement compare of different student groups, or which NGSS topics are areas of strength and of need for my students? This is perhaps the most commonly overlooked report available in KITE. So we're just going to take a quick peek here at a sample. This is not real student data, of course, as you'll notice when you look at the names, but it's just an overview. So this is a CSV file. I am going to make it a table just to make our work with it a little bit easier. And so this gives you information not only related to overall achievement level and overall scale score, but it also provides you with that helpful contextual information around subscores. So this is the only place that you're going to find individual student data, the numeric values for the subscore, raw scores, and the maximum points. It doesn't appear in the ISR. In the ISR, it's more of a pill chart to give families a general idea of where a student's performing at each of these subscores, but this is the place you want to go if you're going to be doing some deeper data analysis with this. So through this, you can compare student performance in different groups, different schools. So for example, here, if I wanted to look at student performance for students in grade 8 in my district, I could. And then I have 2 grade 8 schools in my fake district here, and I could compare the performance of students within those schools to each other to figure out what strengths one school might be able to share with another to improve instructional performance. Or I could group by subscore to figure out which discipline area my students may need more support in. So great options there with the student scored data file. So the 25-26 school year administration dates, high school is April 1st through April 17th, which is a little bit longer than 2 weeks to account for schools that may end a little bit earlier before that spring break the following week. And grades 5 and 8 is 2 weeks, May 11th through the 22nd. So there will remain 3 sessions per grade level, each 50 minutes in length for high school and 60 minutes in length for grades 5 and 8. And then whom do you contact if you have questions about the Maine Science Assessment? Kite Service Desk is your go-to for questions about accessing those Spring 25 reports starting on August 26th. I'm here for questions related to content, accessibility, scoring, and reporting, as well as policy. And the Maine Science Support Desk is there to address any technical issues with the ADAM platform. You shouldn't have too many right now unless you're struggling to access those big progress summary reports for participation purposes. There are no student score data available within ADAM. And with that, I am going to turn it back over to Jody.
So filling in for Dr. Lewis, who's out of office this week, I'll be touching briefly on the National Assessment of Educational Progress today. This is also known as the NAEP. It is on schedule for a 2026 administration. 202 Maine schools have been selected by the National Center for Educational Statistics, or NCES, as part of the sample. They will participate in the grades 4 and 8 operational or pilot assessments in reading and mathematics. An additional 3 Maine schools were selected for participation in the optional NAEP grade 8 civics and U.S. history, and 2 Maine high schools were selected as part of the sample for the optional grade 12 reading and mathematics pilot in NAEP 2026. NAEP 2026 includes new frameworks, and so that's a little bit of the context for the assessment this year. There will be a bridging study that is necessitated because of the move to using new frameworks. That's also what necessitates the pretesting, including the pilot assessments. Here we have the revised NAEP 2026 timeline. As many of you may know, initial NAEP notification letters usually are sent to superintendents on a June, early July timeframe. This year, that process was delayed. All states in the country were awaiting notification from the Federal Office of Management and Budget, also known as OMB, that the final NAEP letters had been approved. The late approval of the letters also had a slight downstream effect. And so we have now issued all of our SAU letters, principal letters, and district assessment coordinator letters to the Maine SAUs and schools. And as you can see here, the technology timeline has also been revised as part of that impact. So I specifically want to highlight here the deadline of September 19th. That is for the school technology survey. Dr. Lewis will be working with each of the district assessment coordinators in the selected SAUs to identify the local colleague whether it's district technology coordinator or someone else who will be completing the technology survey for participation in the NAEP 2026. So here are the technical requirements for administration of NAEP 2026 because they are looking to utilize school devices. These will be important to share with the local district technology coordinator in selected SAUs and schools. And as a reminder, some districts may not have school devices that meet these requirements, in which case NAEP staff will bring NAEP provided devices to the school on the day of the assessment. There will also be SAUs in schools where NAEP devices are randomly assigned for use, in which case the NAEP staff would also bring them to the school on the day of the assessment. And more details around the use of NAEP devices versus school devices will be provided by Dr. Lewis as the assessment window approaches. And Daniela, you can just scroll through these next few slides, slowly. So here we're just providing a few NAEP resources. These will help you and your designated NAEP school coordinators, as well as technology coordinators and the rest of your support staff, get started with NAEP assessment management system, looking at the 2026 school technology survey, and other references to where you can reach out for support, whether it's to NAEP support or you need to get in touch with Dr. Lewis, who will get back to you as soon as possible. And technical assistance and logistical support will be available throughout this school year leading up to the NAEP administration. And these links are also available in the slides that Daniela emailed out this morning. And I'll hand it over to you, Michelle, for alternate and ELP assessments.
Well, hello again. First, I will be talking about the WIDA Access and WIDA Alternate Access, which are the state general and alternate English language proficiency summative assessments. So please keep in mind the assessment window for the 25-26 school year will be January 6th through February 27th of 2026. And just a reminder that student reports are still available for district level users or test coordinators to download on the WIDA AMS Secure Portal. Once logged in, simply follow the steps outlined in this slide to download and print the reports. Keep in mind that WIDA AMS allows district users to view both district level and school level reporting. School users may only view school level reporting. And as always, if you need any assistance with viewing or downloading reports, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. So moving on from reports, I want to share with you some new information regarding the WIDA alternate exit criteria. So to exit from ESOL services, a student identified as a multilingual learner must demonstrate English language proficiency. The Maine Department of Education utilizes the WIDA Access and WIDA Alternate Access as tools for providing this measure of proficiency. The majority of Maine's MLs participate in the general WIDA Access, and proficiency is established with an overall composite proficiency level of 4.5. During the 24-25 school year, WIDA introduced the redesigned WIDA Alternate Access, the assessment designed to measure the English language proficiency of MLs with the most significant cognitive disabilities. Students participating in the WIDA Alternate Access also participate in the state's alternate assessments in reading, math, and science, and have been found eligible for this participation via the IEP team. So with the redesign of the WIDA Alternate Access, required standing setting took place in the summer of 24. New performance level thresholds, scale ranges, and scores and proficiency levels were developed by WIDA in partnership with the consortium of states. As a result, state-specific exit criteria for MLs participating in the WIDA Alternate Access needed to be reestablished. So beginning in the 24 school year, the Maine Department of Education began internal work group focused on determining the new exit criteria for MLs eligible to participate in the WIDA Alternate Access. This group included representation from the Offices of Teaching and Learning, Special Services and Inclusion, and federal programs. The timeline also included presentation of both processes and final recommendations for exit from ESOL services to Maine's Multi-Learner Advisory Council and the Office of Commissioner, this in 2025. So as you can see on this slide, Maine's new exit criteria was established for multilingual learners with the most significant cognitive disabilities participating in the WIDA Alternate Access. as an overall composite proficiency level of 4.0. So 4.0 is our new exit criteria. So here I just want to point out some important dates for the upcoming year. As some of these dates get a little closer, we will discuss them in more detail during future office hours. So for now, just please make note of these dates. Keep them in mind. And again, that administration window being January 5th through February 27th. We will be having some upcoming professional learning opportunities. So here I just wanted to draw your attention to those opportunities that will be provided throughout the year. To see a full description and to register for any of these webinars, please see the Maine Department of Education events calendar. You can see a full description of all of them and register for them right there. Maine will also be providing 2 facilitated webinar series through WIDA this year. We did that last year, and so we'll be doing a couple of them this year. So the first series of 2 webinars that I wanted to point out provides ideas for expanding reading instruction to make it more effective for multilingual learners. Participants will learn ways to build on and expand current approaches to teaching, reading, and to engage multilingual learners in interactions that support reading development. There's a QR code that can be used, or you can go to the Maine DOE events calendar to learn more about these facilitated webinars and to register for them. And the second one that we'll be providing this year, we did this one last year, and it was, we had so many people for it, we opted to do it again this year. So this is one where participants will examine ideas that guide, support, and strengthen instructional planning practices for students who are duly identified as special education and multilingual learners. Again, you can use that QR code or go to the Maine DOE events calendar to learn more and register for this facilitated webinar series. And here is our Who to Contact page for WIDA Access and Alternate Access. So you've got the WIDA Client Services Center for support with WIDA secure portal accounts and assessment training. You have the Data Recognition Corporate for everything that's WIDA AMS, as well as the assessment delivery platform. And then you've got me for any questions related to accessibility, policy-related questions, data, or just anything that you need an answer for that you don't feel that you've gotten it from the other resources. Now for a quick update around our multi-state alternate assessment, or our MSAA. First of all, please note that the assessment time window for this year is going to be March 9th through April 24th of 2026. And next, I just want to remind everyone, in case your MSA reports or for your SAUs or your special purpose private schools have not yet been downloaded, district school and student reports for the spring 2025 MSAA in Math, ELA, and Science are available for download within the MSAA system. Please make sure that these reports are downloaded by September 12th so that they can be sent to parents and added to student record files. Keep in mind that special purpose private schools will need to download the reports and provide them to the SAUs and coordinate with the sending districts to ensure parents also receive copies of the reports. It's vital that this process be completed prior to the end of the day on September 12th. Once the reporting window closes on this day, reports will no longer be able to be downloaded as the system is cleared. And just as a note, this is an extra week compared to previous years, as we do understand the start of the year is very busy. So hopefully this will ensure that district test coordinators have the time that they need to download reports when school begins. And please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions or need any assistance with making sure that those reports are downloaded. And here again, I just wanted to point out some important dates for the upcoming year that we will discuss in more detail during future office hours. So here I just wanted to draw your attention to these dates. I do want to particularly draw your attention to the first item on the list. We're going to be having a special office hours on September 10th at noon devoted strictly to Maine's alternate assessments. So just kind of keep that one in mind, and you can register for that event again on the DOE events calendar. Here is a list of the upcoming trainings for the 25-26 school year related specifically to the multi-state alternate assessment. And here is the contact information for MSAA. So if you have any questions related to issues with the platform, questions around account permissions or creation, mandatory training modules and quizzes, or help logging into the MSAA system, you can reach out directly to MSAA Service Desk. If you have any questions related to accessibility policy, data, or just any other issues you have, please reach out to me. I'm here to support.